This time on the Real Generation Gap.
Because the United States government bailed out these schemes.
This is bad. It's not going according to plan, and it's getting worse, and we really feel that.
Financial destruction is the horror movie. That's, This is you're not a little kid anymore.
He goes, what were you expecting? What do you think we'd find? And he goes, I don't know, grown-ups. Hi, welcome to the Real Generation Gap. I'm BJ Kang.
I'm Fred Satilli.
And today we're reviewing The Big Short, When Millions of Americans Were Cheated Out of Their Homes, a movie about the 2008 housing crisis and the three investing firms which made billions off the catastrophe. Now, Fred, the reason I recommended this movie is because this is one of my favorite movies of all time. And funnily enough, I don't know jack about investing, finance, or mortgages, or basically 50% of what they're really saying in this movie.
Over your head?
Yeah. But I don't think when you watch this movie, I don't think you really have to understand any of really what they're saying. Maybe you need to have some vague idea, but the movie does a really good job of, unashamedly throwing these very Wall Street jargon words at you and being unafraid that the viewer can still really enjoy the movie and really be gripped by it without having to understand all of that.
That's really cool. That you can get a lot out of this with very little knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the better the movie is. Yeah. So everybody at every level, the movie holds its own as a movie, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a documentary. It's a drama. It's a drama story. And it really could have almost been about anything. There's a lot of corruption in the world, and this is one of them. And the delivery between Christian Bale and Steve Carell, those two characters, there was many other great characters, but those guys were so strong in portraying their human reaction. They were way ahead of the curve on the catastrophe. One guy was an incredible analyst. That was Christian Bale, his character.
Michael Burry, I believe that was the name of who he was playing.
You're right.
Yeah.
And Steve Carell was a man who was outraged by injustice. And what happened to all these people was a injustice on steroids, and he was furious about it the whole time. And so both of those guys were phenomenally good character portrayals. And I know about bubbles. I saw the .com bubble. It was before you were born. Mm-hmm. Everybody had to invest a huge amount of money in all these .com. Everybody had it. Right now, it's AI. Right now, every third ad you see here on YouTube is, hey, if you're not making money on AI, and people are going to pour millions and zillions of dollars into the AI startups and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to excel and go crazy and everything, and then they're going to bust. It's the next bubble. Yeah. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I definitely think that, to me, I think Steve Carell really stood out as probably one of the strongest performances in the movie. I have this sort of joke with my family because me and all my family are huge movie buffs, huge cinephiles, and we have this joke that every typecast comedy actor has one serious role, and that's their best role. I know Steve Carell has more serious roles, but this was the first one I had ever seen him in a serious role. I'd seen him the 40-Year-Old Virgin and Date Night and stuff like that. But when I saw him in this movie, I couldn't believe the performance I was able to see from him. It was phenomenal.
You almost felt like it was the real him, It's, who's like that? Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean. You see him really goofy, and then you see him do he's like a gangster or something, and you can't believe it. Just goes to show you how much range some of these actors have.
This movie is definitely carried by the actor performances. Like I said before, there's a lot of Wall Street jargon, finance terms that are being thrown at you.
Of course.
You have words like synthetic CDOs, credit default swaps, mortgage-backed securities. I was I don't know what any of this means, but when you see their faces, when you see their demeanors, the way
they're outraged,
the way that their body contorts or sort of stiffens up when they hear certain words or when certain words click together, you can tell I don't know what they're saying, but I know that this is bad. You have this real sense of impending doom.
Yeah, and then they did my favorite thing. They did it 2 or 3 times in the movie. They had a complex situation. So they had Margot Robbie in a bubble bath describe it to you in real simple to understand terms. And she threw in like gratuitous profanity and stuff just for her character in there. And it made you totally understood what they were doing.
I thought that was really cool. I thought it's like you could 100% get a little lost in this movie with the terminology. But what they do to sort of alleviate that is that they kind of stop the story for a little bit to do this cool celebrity cameo. You had like Anthony Bourdain, Selena Gomez.
I forgot about it. Yeah. Celia Gomez was great in the casino.
Yeah, and Margot Robbie, like you said, and it's like this creative kind of funny little pause in the middle where they explain to you what they're saying and what's going on in layman's terms, but like also like in a creative way. And I thought that was really cool. It might break up the pacing of the story a little bit to halt and be like, okay, this is what they're saying, but like it's still done in an interesting and kind of charming way.
I think without those breaks, it would have become strident and boring. Mm-hmm. You can't sort of be outraged all the time. You need that comedy, tragedy. And they did a real good job of mixing that all up and made something that was constantly engaging. When you have something in investment terms, and somebody can't just say, "Oh, just go in and buy low and sell high." Just obviously, right? Buy low, then sell high. You idiot.
I don't know what that means.
You can't possibly. Well, you understand if you buy something, at a low price and then you sell it at a high price, you make a profit. The problem with this scheme was that they were controlling the buying and selling.
Yeah.
And that's why it was such a big scandal.
The most like villainous part of this is that what they're buying and selling are people's homes, people's livelihoods, because the whole movie is based off of the fact that there is these I still don't really understand it, but I believe it's like you have all these collections of mortgages that and you have all these collections of mortgages, and people are investing into the insurances on them, but they know that they will fail. Like the loaning companies or the mortgage companies are purposely handing out these really bad loans to people that they know that they cannot pay them, because they know that when they fail, the people investing into those collections of mortgages will get the money from the insurance because they're guaranteed to fail. But the only people who really get screwed out are the people who paid for those mortgages.
No, there's two groups that get screwed. Okay, the people who lose their home, there's three people. The people who got the mortgage, they got an adjustable rate mortgage, and now the adjustment came and they could no longer make the payments. And they were like, whoa, I was paying $1,000, now you're telling me $2,000? They got hurt. Now, the one guy they showed in the movie who was the renter, he was renting a house. And his family were there, and they were going to school there, and he was renting the house. But the owner of the house lost the house because he wasn't making
his
the
landlord,
payments.
Yeah.
Right. So even that guy who wasn't even involved in the mortgage thing at all, he just was renting a house. But he still was kicked out of his house. So he was the second kind of person that got screwed in this thing. And the ultimate big person that really did was every American, because the United States government bailed out these schemes, and all these schemers who did this, they all got a lot of money, big pay. They got big bonuses. They got big bonuses the year after they pulled this stunt, and the government knew it the whole time. In fact, the government compelled it. This happened 2007, 2008, but it was started by Bill Clinton. Not exactly what year in his presidency, but he said, well, we want everybody to have a home.
Yeah,
everybody, this guy wants everybody to have a home. Vote for me, we'll all get homes. And then he told the banks, just go ahead and write bad paper, and we'll backstop it here in the government. If you don't get your money, we'll give it to you, right? It's like now with the student loans. If you go to college and you can't get a job, well, we'll give you the money for the student loans, right? It's like, no, that was an investment. And now the people bail them out. Mm-hmm. The people bailed out these mortgage companies. That's when they invented too big to fail. Mm-hmm. We can't let, Deutsche Bank and Chase Bank and Citibank, we can't let them, Bank of America, we can't let them fail. The economy of the country will collapse. Just the way it is in China now with the real estate, right? They're having their bubble.
Yeah.
So, they did this, and the taxpayers. This is why we have these $1 trillion budgets now. How can it be that we have $1 trillion budget? It's absurd.
Yeah.
Because we gave huge money to all these people. They said in the movie only one person was held liable for all this, and he was some kind of low-level
Like
investor.
some schmuck who just got caught.
Yeah, and he couldn't defend himself. He wasn't in with the in crowd because everybody else was in with the in crowd, right?
That was what was like when you watch the movie for the first time, you might not understand what's going on, but when you do a little research and you watch a second time, it becomes so much scarier and becomes so much more compelling. It's because at first you know that something's bad happening, you're not sure what, but they do a really good job of conveying that to you and getting you to feel that. But then when you do the research, you realize, was this even legal? It's like they were giving like loans to people who couldn't afford them, and they knew that they would eventually fail, but everyone had the illusion that the housing market was so strong because everyone was getting a house.
Right.
But these investors...
And they were increasing in value every year.
But these investors realized when they look deeper into it, holy crap, none of these people are going to be able to pay when the adjustable rates kick in, and the whole movie is about them sort of racing to be the first one to buy as many insurances on these bonds because it's going to be a huge payout. But it makes you feel dirty at the end a little bit, even when they win.
Well, at the end, when they say... And now they're starting it again. This past year, and I guess that was 2015 when they made the movie, they said the government was beginning to allow mortgage-backed insurable securities again. They gave it a different name.
Yeah.
Right? So it worked once, it'll work again, right? These people will be sucked into this again.
And that ending scene was so good. I'm really happy that I found that it was super impactful for him to have used like a very somber kind of ending note there where I believe Steve Carell's character is at the top, and the writing is phenomenal because the things that you're saying are just like he just gives it to you straight. He just says,
right.
At the end of the day, I get the feeling that what will happen is millions of Americans will lose their homes, and the taxpayers will have to bail out the banks, and they will blame poor people and immigrants. And it's like that's a very harrowing, like just straight cut line there.
Right. Well, one of the you're talking about a heavy moral issue right now, and it was said in the middle of the movie. I don't remember the guy's name. I think it was Raskin. He was an investor who got out of the business because it was so immoral.
That was Brad Pitt's character, I believe.
Yeah. Ben Rickert.
Rickert,
right.
Yeah, Rickert.
Yeah, Ben Rickert. He saw how evil the whole thing was, and so he got out of it. He wanted to be like an organic farmer, and he wanted seeds. He had a lot of seeds. So he used to have millions of dollars.
Kind of like a doomsday prepper kind of character, a little bit.
Very much so, and a really, really effective job. Yeah. Once again, Brad Pitt. Once again, but. These two young men come to him and they say, we know you have the capacity to do the analysis and figure out how we can capitalize on it. We realize that this crisis is going to come and we want to take advantage of it. Yeah. And he says, I will help you. And then they go along, and these two young men, they hit the jackpot, they make a lot of money, and they start yahooing it. They're like, yay, we did it. He said, don't celebrate. You just destroyed a whole bunch of people's lives. You wanted to be rich? Now you're rich. You suck.
When I first saw that
you're the
scene,
problem.
Yeah.
And they said, why did you help us? He goes, well, you said you wanted to be rich, so I made you rich, and now you're just like the rest of them. Yeah. And it was, wow.
When I first saw that scene, he said, like, here's a little fact for you. Every 1% that unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. And I was like, that...
Suicides.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, suicides skyrocket, people starve.
Yeah, he hit him with 3 or 4 of those facts.
Yeah.
Like, here's the result of your greed. This is how these many people are going to suffer. How many and how they're going to suffer.
It was interesting because it's like it's a comedy, it's a drama, but in many ways it's also kind of a horror movie. You really feel that horror and that shock to when it's the pieces start kind of coming together. And you realize, holy crap, there's a huge level of corruption that went on here.
You know something? I'm going to talk about horror right now. It's interesting what is horror at different times of your life. When you're a little kid, Frankenstein is horror. A monster movie, right? Yeah. Freddy Krueger or something like that. That's a horror movie. When you get a little bit older, financial destruction is the horror movie. That's, this is you're not a little kid anymore. Now you're starting to see where this kind of thing. And then, of course, when you get to be my age, it's medical problems, right? Yeah. Like that's like you don't care about money anymore. You don't care about politics anymore. You're an old man now. And you got, half a dozen medical problems of some kind. And that's all people in my generation, I'm getting to the age now where that's all they talk about. Like, hey, Bob, how you doing? I got a sciatica problem. I got whatever, that's what they do. So horror is interesting. horror is different for different generations.
Yeah.
And this is the family man horror or the family mom horror.
It's really interesting that you say that, because maybe the reason why it scares me so much, and maybe you would feel like not as scared, is because I'm going right, like this, I'm starting this part of my life where money, houses, maybe starting a family, it becomes a bigger concern for me. My life is just beginning, and I need money to do that. And so the idea of this happening...
it's not even that you need money. You just need a fair system. You'll play the game. You just want to know the rules.
Yeah.
You don't want to play in a casino against a stacked deck. You'll play the game. You're going to play poker now with your life, right?
Yeah.
You're going to deal cards. Now you're going to do it. You just want to know that you have a fighting chance, a fair chance. And when stuff like this happens, you can't have confidence in the whole financial system. And you also can't have confidence in the whole government. And I mentioned to you before we talked about FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. This is the same thing. This guy came along. He had a scheme. The SEC, the Regulatory Commission, everybody could easily see that this was really bad.
Yeah.
But because he was using basically high-tech money, Silicon Valley money, that kind of thing, and because he was donating heavily to the Democrat Party, everybody let it go. Everybody, as long as money's coming in, let it go. It's the same thing with drugs coming across the border. Somebody's making a real lot of money, not the cartels. Somebody here is allowing that because they're making a lot of money, so they're letting it roll, right? Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden that money wasn't coming to the government that was allowing this, they'd stop it like that. Right?
Yeah.
But they don't. They didn't stop this guy. They didn't stop FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. And this is why you got no confidence now we have no confidence in the medical industry because they had the government flu. We have no confidence in the finance because Solyndra, right? We have no confidence in the government because they're allowing all this malfeasance worldwide. Look at these wars. Today, this very day, they're saying that Iran might attack Israel with missiles. And where's the UN? We got no confidence in the UN now. They're supposed to be stopping. We shouldn't be having wars. It's 2024. It's almost 100 years before, it's like 90 years before World War II started.
Yeah.
And still, we have tanks, fighter planes. Are you kidding? Mm-hmm. We couldn't learn that from World War II not to do that. But we're good with it. We've got these conflicts going all over the world. Everybody's doing it. So this movie was a tremendous expose, and it wasn't done as a boring documentary. It was done as a fantastically well-told story. And like you said, incredible writing. I wasn't in love with the soundtrack, but you seem to get a lot out of it, which is cool.
I thought the soundtrack was really interesting because I thought it was a very good blend of both unoriginal songs and original songs. Like in a lot of scenes where they're sort of explaining the financial terms, or like they're really exposing like the corruption and the scheme that's going on, they have this sort of like this piano piece that's real fast and real, like that. And it gives that sense of, I wrote it down here somewhere, that it gives a real somber tone that, like, you might not understand it, but the music helps you to understand it, which I thought was really cool. And then a lot of the tones of certain scenes are also reinforced by the unoriginal songs. Like when they go to Las Vegas, they use that one song from the Phantom of the Opera. Mm-hmm. It's like that big orchestral piece with the organ.
Yeah.
And it gives a sense that this is a horrible, really scary, terrible place because there are things going on in the city of sin, just not the kind of sin that you're thinking about.
That's right. Yeah, all kind of things are staying in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And that you mentioned Vegas. To me, the most horrifying guy and the guy I hated most was that really handsome tan guy.
The synthetic CDO manager. I know exactly what you're
talking about. The synthetic CDO manager.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And he just knew just what a son of a bitch he was. He knew it. He loved it. He loved that they knew that he knew that they knew that he knew. You know what I mean? The Christian Bale, he was the one that really figured it out.
Yeah.
He really figured it out. then yeah, look at him on the right there. He was in the office barefoot, walking around, brushing his teeth, wearing T-shirts and everything. He figured this out. They portrayed him as like autistic. Like he had a mind that was capable of seeing into
I believe that the real Michael Burry is I believe he is autistic. I want to get a fact check on that one for sure. But I believe that the real Michael Burry is autistic. And that's what was really
at least wildly eccentric in any case. And I loved it because
a little bit of Rain Man scenario.
He was like, regardless of what happens, I'm still right. Right? Regardless of what they do, on Wall Street or in the mortgage companies or whatever, I'm right. This thing's bad and it's going to fail. It's a matter of when. But the problem that he experienced was he couldn't imagine an unjust outcome. He's like, this is going to collapse and all these banks are going to collapse. And then when those banks didn't collapse, where's the fair play? The banks have to collapse. They wrote all this bad paper. When you write bad paper, you have to lose money.
Yeah.
But the government bailed him out. And that was a betrayal of his whole concept of life. He was like, oh, I see there are no rules. There are no rules. You just do whatever you want and you get away with it. And everybody sure did, didn't they? Everybody except the little guy.
And that's what's funny about this movie is that you have 3 different investing firms, and the way they all react to it and what they get out of it is different. You have Front Point, which was Steve Carell and his group, and they were all cynical of the system, distrusting, like you said, and they were proven right at the end, but it didn't make them feel any more comfortable.
No, they were like, oh my God, they made the money, and they were like, this should have never happened.
Michael Burry was just doing his job. He was just doing his job of helping his investors to make a lot of money, but they all turned on him, and he had to see what doing the job was really like, and he did do his job at the end, but he quit. He quit his job because he saw what it was really like doing it.
Right.
And then you had Brownfield, who was the young guys.
Right.
The young guys, and they were bright-eyed and they were eager to get into the game. And once they got into it, once they made their big break, their innocence was lost. They were the young guys, and they lost their innocence. And that's what was really interesting.
Yeah, they wanted to win in a fair play game too. They wanted to win based on their intelligence and their insight and their training.
And you had 3 different groups who went into this. Different levels of experience, different angles, and they all got what they want, but it's like everyone lost regardless. Mm-hmm. And that was really cool.
Right. Well, it's like in Dune, the guy won the war and he lost the girl.
Yeah.
Right. We reviewed that a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And a few months ago, we reviewed the movie called Dumb Money. And Dumb Money had a similar situation, but it got flipped. The guy...
It was about the GameStop
yes,
stock,
the GameStop
right?
story. And this is where a guy was on the internet, and he was telling all of his people, don't sell. Even though it's going up, don't sell. And his people, because it became so cult-like, they held the line. So it kept increasing in value, just like the prices of homes. But he was like, don't sell, don't hold, right? Hold. It was HLD, right? Dumb Money was a good primer for this movie because it was like a microscopic. This is the whole.
Because those were just like guys at home at their computers and stuff like that. These are like real investors, people who are part of funds, and they're capable. They're responsible for managing millions of dollars. So the stakes,
billions of dollars, and oversight by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, who didn't do their job. And no government entity did their job. This thing should have been caught 5 years before it happened.
And that's the reaction that they all had. Like when 2007 came around, the movie, and that's when everything should have fallen apart. Things didn't fall apart because instead the bubble just got larger, but it shouldn't have gotten larger. And that's what they were horrified in that part of the movie when they realized that, mortgage rates were failing, or
foreclosures.
Lots of foreclosures. People weren't being able to pay, and yet somehow the stock kept going up, and they were like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, how is this being capitalized? Right? No money's coming in. And there's nothing at the bottom.
I don't watch the NASDAQ or anything like that. So when they were watching the TV and they were analyzing those, statistics and stuff like that, I still found it hard to sort of understand what they were saying. But from their reactions, and I was able to understand this is bad. It's not going according to plan, and it's getting worse. And we really feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with any Ponzi scheme, money has to come in at the bottom. The top can't keep going up unless money's coming in at the bottom. They watched the money less and less coming in at the bottom. I mean, there were places you don't know, but in Nevada, right next to Las Vegas, there was a place called Henderson. It's still there. And they were just building houses there like absolutely mad. They were all spec houses. They were just on speculation. And these houses, when they started construction, the house would actually go up in value as the construction was taking place. So you're building a $300,000 home. By the time you built it, it's a $400,000 home. Well, Henderson, there were gigantic square miles of area that they didn't even turn the electric and the plumbing on because nobody was buying those houses. And you couldn't even buy one. There was no utilities, So it was like, we'll give you that house for any amount. But they couldn't sell them, and it was that way all over the place. And it's happening right now in a major way in China. Yeah. There are whole cities that are just unoccupied. Nobody can afford them, right? Yeah. So, real estate bubbles are bad. .com bubble was bad. The AI bubble's going to be bad. You heard it here first. I'm telling you right now. That's the hottest thing, right? Anything that's the hottest thing is going to burst. Good, slow, and steady stuff. That's the way to prosperity. You can, if you're lucky enough to catch one of these waves and get out in time. Very few people get out in time because of greed. And when the end comes, it's off a cliff. So, this is a great movie for everybody to watch educationally. You're right; they should watch it more than once. Yeah.
Gets scarier every time you view it.
Different. If you're young enough, it won't be scary. It'll be incomprehensible. If somebody in their 20s and 30s, it's going to be, how can we trust the world? How can we even buy a house, even if we can afford it? What are they going to do? They're going to collapse the housing market? A lot of people, here's a concept. They didn't really bring this out, but people were upside down. So they bought the house for $500,000. In 1 year, the value went up to $600,000. 2009, it went down to $250,000. Now they're paying a mortgage of $400,000 on a $250,000 house. Does that make sense? Just abandon it. In the movie, they said these people didn't even change the cat litter. They just left. Yeah. So now there's another house in the neighborhood that's unsellable.
Yeah. That whole scene of where they're walking through that neighborhood with the nice houses and they're all just abandoned. It's like a ghost town. That was it was like the apocalypse. It was almost as if you were watching a different movie, like you were watching The Road or something like that. But it was in the middle of, the height of our society, the height of our economy, and yet houses are abandoned. People just leave stuff behind. It looked like the apocalypse in the middle of, normal everyday life.
Yeah, Twilight Zone, right? Where are all the people? Why aren't there any cars in any of the driveways?
I think one of the most sort of harrowing scenes is the one where Brownfield Capital, which is the two young guys, right? The whole point of their whole story is they're trying to make it to the big boy table. They're trying to make it up there with the big dogs and then with the investing and stuff like that. And then at the very end, once they finally, because at the beginning they even say it's they've never even been in a Manhattan bank bathroom, but then they get there on the main trading floor and it's desolate. Everyone's gone. And I think this one of the best lines in the entire movie that really showcases the phenomenal writing was when one of them asks the other, he goes, what were you expecting? What did you think we'd find? And he goes, I don't know, grown-ups.
Yeah, grown-ups.
It's
right.
And it really illustrates that people were being so the people in charge of this money were being so fraudulent with it. They were being crooks and they were like college frat boys, right? Yeah, the director Adam McKay is really good at doing movies like that. He did the movie Vice, which was a movie about a movie on the vice presidency of Dick Cheney, and also with Christian Bale nominated for that movie. Really good balance of both comedy and also drama and a little bit of horror in that one too. So Adam McKay is really good at directing a movie to look like that.
Good storyteller, huh?
Yeah. I recommend this movie because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. If I had to give it a personal rating, it would be a 10 out of 10. But from an objective rating, as someone rating it from a movie standpoint, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think that there are certain... I think it's hard to sort of comprehend at some points, but they do a really good job of explaining it. But you could also feel a little, stopped in the narrative there when you stop to explain it. So maybe an 8 out of 10. Not a lot of people... there might be a couple people who drop out from this movie. But I would recommend seeing it more than once.
Well, that's why my rating is going to be like this. If you're under the age of 20, it's a 2. If you're 20 to 30, it's an 8. If you're 30 to 40, it's a 10. I guess if you're 50, it's a 10. If you're over 65, it's an 8. If you're over 80, it's a 2. I'll go with 8.
Nice.
I'm Fred Satilli.
I'm BJ Kang.
And we're out.
Thank you for watching.